episode gave me a completely different perspective on the story and the arc as a whole of Skypiea and who the victims are, who the heroes and villains are. It just completely changed everything for me. So pretty much up to this point, it seems like the Shandians have basically just been like a rebellious group that rejected the idea of being a god and being repressed and anything like that. And I mean, who wouldn't reject the idea of being repressed and being told what to do and essentially being victimized by a governing body, this figure that's revered or feared by so many people? Who wouldn't sort of reject that idea and try and reform some sort of rebellion? That's what I assumed sort of up to this point, and maybe there was some sort of history there. But what it turns out is the Shandians are actually the ones that originally came to Skypiea via Upper Yard. You know, they were part of the upstream and they arrived on this island, or they were already on this island when it arrived in Skypiea. And this is their homeland. Upper Yard is their homeland, and it's been taken over by the Sky People because of this Viarth stuff, you know, the soil, the dirt that the Sky People basically revere and care so much about, and they can't live without it at this point. It's become an integral part of the Skypian culture of the Sky People, and they essentially stole the homeland of this indigenous tribe that lived in Upper Yard. And Wiper said it before that he doesn't care who God is, but again, this gives a whole new perspective. The whole point is, whether it's Ganful, whether it's Anel, the point is his homeland has been taken away from him, and he wants it back more than anything. And we even see a flashback when Ganful was God, and they're having this sort of, they're trying to have like a peace treaty almost, try and coexist. But, you know, Wiper just refuses because of the situation and everything like that. And you can't blame him because, like I said, his homeland has been taken away. And he shouldn't have to give up his homeland to these people that have stolen it from him and even coexist. Like, get where he's coming from, if that makes sense. But for some reason, Ganvul decides to be really petty and say to Wiper, "I love pumpkin juice, by the way." I don't know why he said that. I don't understand what the purpose was besides being petty and being horrible, but maybe there's a deeper reason behind that, or maybe he was just being horrible to Wiper for no reason. I'm not too sure, but like I said, the Skypians are definitely the biggest victims, I feel like, in this whole situation. The Sky People as well, of course, being ruled under Anel and being forced to, you know, do his heavenly judgment and all that sort of stuff, but you know, it's kind of their own fault in a way. You know, I get a lot of them are just victims of circumstance and they're just living how they live now off of Earth. It's what they're used to. But still, like I said, the Shandians are definitely the victims in this whole thing, it feels like. Ganful in this episode also explained a little bit more about Anel and how he operates and the way his sort of mind works, and that is by something he calls awareness of sin. And he is essentially him ruling the land by fear, making it the citizens of the Skypians know that if they do anything wrong, if they don't abide by his law and his heavenly judgment or whatever, and get ruled by him, they can be punished. You know, they will have committed a sin and they will be, you know, potentially killed or anything like that. And that's how he rules the people. You know, they're essentially sheep, as Ganful puts it. Like, being aware of the fact that they can be punished is the way that Anel controls all these people. So, I mean, it makes sense. And Ganful also says something interesting, saying that Anel is playing God, but it feels like that's exactly what Ganful was doing. Neither of them are like God in the traditional sense, I guess, in a way, but both of them have filled that role in very different ways. So I thought that was quite interesting. It was good to finally get like a perspective on everything that's happening right now and sort of more of the history of Upper Yard and the Skypians and the Shandians in general. But at the end of this episode, the Shandians are charging right back into Upper Yard and they're going directly for Anel. At least Wiper said the only thing they want is Anel's head. They're coming back to get their land back. And I'm sort of rooting for him at this point, to be honest. Like I said, the Shandians are the ones that have been victimized in this entire thing. So if they're the ones to take down Anel, great. But I don't think it's going to be that easy. At the end of this episode, we see Anel knows exactly what's going on. He knows the Shandians are coming. He knows that the Straw Hats are being scattered around and stuff like that. And they've gone into two teams and they've been separated by this big snake and all that sort of stuff. Anel is obviously omnipresent. He knows exactly what's happening at the moment. Maybe not omnipresent, but he knows what's happening. You know, he knows all the movements of Upper Yard. So I don't think they're going to be able to just get the jump on him. But like I said, this episode was awesome, getting more context on all of that sort of stuff. And I'm excited to see, you know, the Shandians eventually clash with Anel. Same with the Straw Hats. I can't wait to see how this all sort of wraps together. But this arc has been fantastic so far, and let's keep it going.